Hello, everyone. Hello, Puran Banu. Please go ahead and start the session.
به نام خداوند جان و خرد. با درود به فرهیختگان جهان و همکیشان نیکندیش. برنامه پیام زرتشت بررسی سرود گاتها را همراه با پرسش و پاسخ با شهروز اش و رهروان کوشنده این راه همراهیم.
سپاس بانو پوران. Shahrooz Jan, the floor is yours.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay, doc. Thank you very much. Thanks for the wonderful and beautiful introduction, Puran Banu. So as I was stating before we started recording, the first 7 songs of the Gathas are known as Ahunavaiti. We have reached song number 5, and Ahunavaiti, according to Dr. Jafari, meant Ahu or Ahu, which I believe is the right way of saying the word. Ahu means leader, and Vaiti means someone who possesses the character and the knowledge of leadership. So the first 7 songs are about leadership and how Shahrooz Ash has been chosen to be the leader of the living world, to take us through this evolution through Freshokerti to make this world reach Hawarvatat, which means perfection or wholeness, and then Amoratat, which means to be deathless or immortal. That's how we get the word immortal in the English language. It's a derivative of Sanskrit and Avestan, which is an Indo-European language. So in the first song, I'll give a 2-minute quick summary. The Gaush Orvan, the soul of the living world, complained about the living condition of humanity. In song number 2, Shahrooz Ash was chosen as the Ahu or the leader to essentially lead humanity through the path of Asha, so that we can reach Hawarvatat and Amoratat. And Shahrooz Ash was chosen by the people, by Ahura, Mazda, Asha, and Vahumana. There's a dialogue that goes on. It's almost like a play. Dr. Jafari claims it's the oldest Indo-European play or drama, where there's a dialogue takes place between Ahura Mazda, Asha, and Vahumana that choose Shahrooz as the leader of the living world. In song number 3, which is very, very important song, where he declares his doctrine, the duality or the conflict between Asha and Duruj. And also in that song, he mentions that humans are innately free. We are born with free will, that in order for us to choose between Asha and Duruj, so no one controls humanity. There's no deceitful deity or a devil or a Satan character that forces us to the path of Duruj or wrong. It is us humans through our own free will that either don't see the path of Asha, or for the reason of greed or fear, we tend to fall off the path of Asha and get deceived, self-deception, that is to the path of Duruj, which is wrong or harm. And song, then last month, we reached song number 4, so the theme continues. And today, song number 5, again, it's a very, very important song. It's just as important of song number 3, where he basically declares his doctrine and philosophy of the conflict between good and evil within the human mind. Song number 5, let me back up. Remember, Zarathustra was a sociologist. When we read the Gathas, we see he's talking about sociology and the social order. He was an ethicist and a moralist. He's talking about ethics and morality. He also was a political establishment or governance, which he mentions in Song 5. He talks about political science, also, which we'll see in this art of leadership in Song number 5. Now, Song number 5 essentially is aberration. That is what Dr. Jafari titled this song, aberration. Now, what do we mean by aberration? Aberration means a departure from what is normal, departure from what is usual or what is expected. So typically one that is unwelcome. So this departure from normal, Shahrooz Ash, remember, was born in an agricultural society that had its own order at that time during his period. It had a political order and a religious order. The leaders of the political orders in the Gathas are mentioned as kavis. Kavis are princes or kings or local tribespeople that rule the tribe or the village, etc. Then the religious leaders of the priesthood clan are called the Karpans. And a Karpan is, according to Dr. Jafari, is a individual who is a arranger of rituals. So religion was really at that time mixed with mythology. So the human mythology included religion, ethics, science, and technology. According to Professor Irani, everything was within this mythology. And the priesthood and the rituals was part of giving answers to the realities of nature and the realities of the human behavior and condition. And we see that, as Professor Irani said, for example, in the Egyptian mythology with Osiris, with Set and Isis and Horus, his son, in the story of when Set became an antagonist to Osiris, who was essentially the head deity and the deity of fertility. He tricks Osiris into a coffin, shuts the coffin on him, rolls it down the river. The coffin lands somewhere in Lebanon, and Isis, his beloved wife, rescues, resurrects Osiris, and then sets up on him again and cuts him into pieces and throws him into the Nile River. And the flood comes, and they had a child, Osiris and Isis. Horus combats in a battle against Set, defeats Set, and the flood comes, and from drought, that symbolizes rains coming, and you get the life and plantation coming back to life. So that mythology really included natural reality, human reality, religion, and it was their moral code. Now, what Zoroaster does, which is revolutionary, according to Professor Keykhosro Irani, Zarathustra was the first person that out of these four domains, he separates ethics and morality from mythology. And that was a huge step that humanity took in terms of the evolution of the human mind. And then later on, again, according to Professor Irani, Plato separated knowledge from mythology, because Plato lived in Greece and he lived in a similar mythic society as the Iranians did or the Egyptians. And Plato, to him, it was not satisfactory to follow myth when it comes to science or knowledge. He felt knowledge should be isolated and has its own merits, has its own understanding, unrelated to mythology. So he broke away, like Zarathustra, from his political leaders and religious leaders. Essentially, he rebels. And when we study Socrates and read the dialogues of Socrates, he resists his own national political system and religious system. And we see the same theme here in Zoroaster, and many people believe that this rebellious on the side of the Socrates, Plato, and the tragedian philosophers that felt, look, we can reach knowledge through our own human understanding without having to need the order of the day, the religious and political system, that knowledge, it's its own branch of discipline, and humans can have insight to it. And mainly he points out mathematics, and we know mathematics is a backbone of science and many of sciences. So what do we see in this song? For example, I'll read this song, number 5 of the Gathas, has 16 stanzas. And he begins in stanza number 1 or verse number 1, "O false gods beware." So he rejects all the tribal gods that had existed or the priesthoods were promoting during his period and his life. "O false gods beware. The family, the community, and the fellowship all pray to the wise God, Mazda Ahura, for bliss in the manner I do, and say, may we be your messengers to control those who are antagonists." So here he rejects the old Indo-Iranian, in particularly the Iranian deities that were mainly nature deities, such as Homa, that was the plant god, Anahita, water god, Attar, fire god, etc. The wise god and ally through good mind, Vahumana, and good friend, Eryanam, through the glorious righteousness of Asha, has responded to them. We have chosen the good progressive serenity, Sepenta Ahunavaiti, for you, and they say, may it be ours. But you deceptive gods, and those who vehemently venerate you, are the creation of evil mind, of Akamana. Akamana is the opposite of Vohumana. Vohu means good mind, Aka means bad. Evil mind, wrong, and disdain. You are notorious for your deceitful deeds in the inhabited part of the earth, because you have, with your actions, made the mortals do the worst, only to be called as Daiva devotees. So he points out towards this word, which we have in modern Persian, div. A div is a monster, is a daiva, which means it's someone who deceives you, and it's a false deity, who give up good mind, who give up Vohumana. They are not in tune with Vohumana or Manishanik or the rational mind, and run away from the wise God's intelligence and from righteousness. So they avoid and run away from Mazda, wisdom, and also Asher. Thus you have deprived mankind of good life and immortality. And we see this theme since Song 1 through 5, and you will see it continue on, that humans should be happy, should be free, and this earth should be paradise. We should be living in this state of bliss. However, our leadership, political, priesthood, religious, prevent us humans from reaching that blissful way of life in peace and harmony and even immortality. I repeat, thus you have deprived mankind of good life and immortality. But in fact, you are the deceptive gods, have deceived yourself. So this is again that notion of self-deception with your evil mentality, deed, and speech by providing the wrongful with power. So I had a professor, Professor Smith in college, who once told me in a class that the hallmark of human beings is self-deception. And Professor Rivani believes that's what Duruj is. So there is no divinity or a deity within our cosmos that deceives us. The deepness and of Duruj, the power of Duruj is when we deceive our Urvan, the I. Urvan represents my self-awareness, the I within me that can perceive and understand. It is the I within Shahrooz, and when I deceive that I within me, that is the self-deception, which also Plato describes in his analogy of the cave. He says human beings, they have the tendency by nature to go to the cave. Spinoza talks about that, and also Immanuel Kant talks about that, that there are two worlds within the history of philosophy. One is the world of emotion and feelings, one is the world of reason. And even Plato, after all his writings, admitted, despite everything I said and I have written, I doubt that people will get pulled into this camp of reason. More than likely, they're going to go back in the cave and be moved by the world of sensation, emotion, and feeling. And that is the world that deceives us from the world of reason. That's been a huge theme within philosophy and modern philosophers. So Zarathustra says that these devas, the false gods, the leadership, and the priesthood, in fact, they have deceived themselves, okay? They are gone to this self-deception that Professor Smith said is the hallmark of human being. And Ashu Zarathustra wants to bring us to the world of reason where Asha exists, and to leave the world of Duruj, because that world is the deceptive world, is the world of Duruj that will takes us off the path of Asha. So in Bait 6 or stanza 6, however, even if this power makes a criminal attain fame, you wise Lord, remember well the fact that in your dominion, in your Kshatra, and under righteousness, your doctrine will prevail. So he says, look, Asha and the truth will ultimately win. Because like Professor Rivani says, once humans truly see Duruj, there's no way they can accept it. They will reject it. The reason sometimes humans reject Asha or what is good is because we lack that clarity or articulation or the dialogue with good words. What is good words? that I have a certain understanding, but maybe my understanding is not compatible with someone else. So we are supposed to have a dialogue and discuss through good words. And with this dialogue and communication, we should identify Asha. And when we see Duruj, there's no way we can accept it, and we will turn away from it. So ultimately, truth will conquer the lie. Regarding these crimes, no wise person has ever attained power which could be called life. And this again, we see within the history of humanity with unwise or tyrannical rulers, that they attain power, they attain fame and wealth, but Zarathustra says that is not life. And we learn that from Asham Bahu, that life for us Zoroastrians is when we do the right thing because it is right, not to attain wealth, not to attain fame, not to attain power. When we put wealth, power, and fame that is personal, when we put our personal um, desire above justice and that above the truth, then we have failed in Asham Vahu. As a Zartoshti, I, Shahrooz, am not supposed to put my self-interest above the truth. I am supposed to choose the truth because it's the truth. Also, as Professor Irani rightfully said, that no one should prosper at the expense of someone else's injury. That is the definition of duruj, and the opposite of asha. So, stanza 8, regarding these crimes, it is said that Yima, son of Vivenhan, also sounded himself the god of our world. Now, interesting here, he mentions Yima, which is King Jamshid in Shahnameh. Because of his arrogance and ego, he fell from his throne. This is a metaphor that Zoroaster is using for such a crime too. As far as I am concerned, the final judgment lies with you. Let us remember that when we reach that bridge of separation, there is no deity that judges us, and it is the consequence of our choice in life. It's the choices that we have made. Those are the causality of the final judgment when I reach that bridge of separation. The causality is not physical like in physics, it's the moral causality of our choices. This is very important. Our moral, our final judgment is the causality of our free will, of our moral choices. I appeal to you, wise Lord, and to righteousness, to Asha, expressing my mind, manner in words. So, stanza 10, indeed, he destroys the doctrine who considers it the worst to look at the world and the sun with plain's eye, who sets the just against the wrongful. And there's division going on here and conflict within human society and no harmony, who destroys settlement. We see this theme that Zoroaster complains that the people that are uncivilized, the barbarians, they attack settlements and they raid settlements, and who hurls a deadly weapon at the righteous. So also, they destroy life and highly regarded the wrongful as lords. So these people we consider lords and ladies, they rob people of their property and try hard to distract the righteous from their best mind. So by their trickery, they try to separate your Vahumana, your rational thinking, with Asha. So you're constantly in this deceitful turmoil so that you get off the path of Asha, you lose your concentration, and you don't see the deception of the political and the religious order. Because if you see the truth, you will stand up, you will rebel like Zarathustra has, and you will question their authority. So it is through such teachings that they try to distract mortals from excellent deeds. For them, the wise one has decreed ill consequences. So that kind of behavior has ill consequences because they destroy worldly life in luxury. It is for this reason that seasoned priests have chosen the wrong dominion of wealthy instead of righteousness. So they're corrupt, their desire is wealth as opposed to Asha, doing the right thing because it is right. I've mentioned in the past, sometimes it's hard to do the right thing, but we get satisfaction out of doing the right thing. For example, I gave an example of there were scuba divers somewhere in the Far East where there were a soccer team trapped within a underground river, and had they not been rescued, they would have perished and died. Therefore, I think it was in Thailand, I could be wrong, Singapore, some scuba divers got together and they went through these canals to save these people, and a couple of them perished. So doing the right thing sometimes can put your life in danger. You can walk across a desert to save a child and you get blisters on your foot. You put yourself through hardship, risking your life and health. But if you believe you're doing the right thing, that's what gives us that bliss and joy and satisfaction, not our luxury way of living and our palaces that Zoroaster claims that these priests and kavis are dwelling in. So sometimes doing the right thing can be difficult, but as Zartushtis through Ashamvahu, Yata Ahu, when we do our Sedra Pushi, we have committed ourselves with conviction to do the right thing, no matter how hard it is, okay? And that is what gives us that ultimate pleasure. For seizing such spoils, even the sagacious princes have long been devoting their minds and efforts. So they're deluded. They have thus resorted to help the wrongful. Fired by the wisdom wasting drink, here he attacks Homa or Soma, which I will talk about. They have declared that the world must be destroyed. So if we follow these people, we will destroy ourselves, we will destroy the human species, we will destroy our planet. And with minimal criticism, we see how we have done this, and we are still on that path, unfortunately. So this Homa is some drink that some scholars have declared or stated that more than likely is a hallucinogenic drug. They're not sure if it's some form of peyote that the Native American Indian shamans eat peyote or the cactus tree, and they hallucinate and they claim they communicate with the divine, with deities. In the Indo-European culture, there was a Russian scholar who claims that this is magic mushroom or psychedelic mushrooms, which the modern creation is LSD, which is a synthetic chemical drug that is hallucinogenic, that takes the mind and tricks the mind. So here he rejects the Homa drink. Now Homa was a deity also that was worshipped at the time, and he claims that this drink will deceive man and will take you off the path of Asha. And he also criticized animal sacrifice in the Gatha. So we know Zoroaster did not believe in superstition. and sacrificing animals for the goodness or grace of God, to have favorite view upon us. And this homa drink that the priesthood take, and they come back and make declaration or commandments upon us, that way of thinking is irrational, that we can reach the truth, but our vohumana manishanik, we can reach the truth, knowledge, asha, and ethics and morality. So, last two stanzas, 15 and 16, it is with such actions that ritualistic priests and princes are annihilating through the very people who they have deprived of the power to live as they wish. So they're taking away our freedom to choose freely the path of Asha. They are forcing a way of life on us that is not in fact Asha, it is Duruj. Of these two parties, the later will be taken to the house of good mind. So the people that follow the benevolent, rational message of Ashu, Zarathustra, will go to the house of the good mind, or maybe growth man, the house of songs, the house of good conscience. When you reach that last stage of your life, again, that judgment is rendered upon yourself based on the choices you made in your life, the consequences of your choices that you have elected. All the teachings of the talented are the best to listen to. Wise Lord, Mazda Ahura, I am powerful enough to meet the twofold threats and restrain the crime of the wrongful directed against friends. So he wants to be a sociant, a ashavan, someone who is committed himself without fear and courage to take on the deceitful, the kavis, and the karpans in order to save his community, to save his friends, to save his family, the house, the city, the district, and the country. And in the last song, song 4, the previous to song 5, I mentioned that Ashur Zartosh talks about the segments of society, the smallest unit being the family, then the community, then the city, then the state or the county, then the country, then the world. And he is trying to convince through his rational message, through his humanitarian message, the barbarians, the antagonists, the deceitful Karpan's political leaders, and the priesthood to join him in this rational ethical world. Because Ashur Zartosh claims that human beings are capable of knowing what ethics or morality is without the need of priesthood or religion in the traditional sense of the word religion, which is what Immanuel Kant tried to do in Europe during the conflict between since the advent of Galileo through the Enlightenment revolution, or the philosophers that came along after Galileo, and Kant tried to separate ethics and morality from Christian religion. He believed that humans have this innate intrinsic sense of morality and ethics, and that we can conclude and reach conclusion and confirm these ethical behaviors or principles without having to rely upon religion. They stand separate on their own as a reality within the human existence. that we can tap into it without the priesthood having to communicate with gods, and that getting the order of morality from God communicated to priesthood, and the priesthood to the society. We do not need priesthood or deities, imaginary deities, to conclude that there is such a thing as ethics and morality, that we can reach those conclusions through reason ourselves and experiment. So Kant, his critique of reason was the two camps of the experimental, empirical philosophers, such as John Locke or David Hume, that only relied upon experimentation. And then you had the rational philosophers that claimed, hey, through the world of reason, we can conclude things. And his critique of reason, he kind of merges both worlds and states that there's a requirement of both, and perhaps they can be compatible. I'm not an expert in Kant, but I do have some understanding of him. So essentially, we see this theme of Zoroaster separating ethics from mythology, and Plato separating knowledge from mythology, and the later philosophers that added more power to this notion and idea that, hey, we can conclude our own ethics and morality, and also through Plato and science, that we can derive to conclusion. There are simpler answers. For example, in this myth story of Osiris, the science said, hey, we don't need this complex structure and organization of mythology to try and give us an answer why there's droughts and why there's rain. It's not because Osiris goes missing, somebody dies. It has nothing to do with that. There's simpler explanation that, hey, our scientists has proven today the reasons why we have earthquakes, the reasons why we have drought, the reason why we have rain. We don't need these complex orders to come up with these conclusions. And little by little, according to Professor Rivani, by around the third millennium, about 1000 BC, despite the mythological world existing, man had gone through this evolution to, well, okay, we'll keep that, but they kind of began to realize that, hey, there is this separation, and they really were not buying the myth stories anymore. By the time of Plato also, humans had evolved to the level that, hey, you know, we understand this science by itself and this knowledge by itself, mainly after Plato, through the Greek Stoic school of thought that moved on to the Roman Empire. They established a lot of schools and academies, that they reached a scientific conclusion or natural order that has simpler answers than this complex mythological stories or orders that humans have developed through their lifetime. Therefore, we see a massive, huge shift after Zarathustra and after Plato, where humans abandon myth and they accept the scientific method and the ethical method. But even up to today, we have preserved them like Santa Claus, but we know it's not real. So that's the enlightenment of man. We still say, yeah, we celebrate Santa Claus, etc., etc. We've kept it as a mythology within our world, but at the same time, we have rejected it, and we understand the rational world, the world of experiment, and we have gone our own path. So I've talked for 45 minutes. I gave a narration, an understanding of this song. Then there's two more songs, and then we depart Ahunavaiti, Gatha. Again, Ashru Zartush is the foremost, Ahu and Ratu. Both Ahu and Ratu is our leader, he's our teacher, and Ashu Zartush promotes the world of not priesthood, but of Ratus. A Ratu is an educator, is someone who understands ethics and science through scientific methods and ethical the methods, and a Ratu is someone who is supposed to teach others. Like a mother or a father is even a Ratu when you try to teach your children morality or ethics or a good way of life. Thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions or comments to make, I'd be more than happy to engage with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shahrooz Jan. Please put your questions in the chat box or just unmute yourself. You explained so well. No one has any questions.
Good, thank you very much. And let us remember in the Gathas, according to Professor Rivani, that Ahura Mazda created two things. Ahura Mazda created Asha, number one. Ahura Mazda created Asha in its mind before the tangible world or the physical world came into existence. The second phase, Ahura Mazda created the physical world. So Ahura Mazda created Asha, and he created the tangible world. The main antagonist to Asha, which Professor Rivani claims Shahrooz Ash does not point out, the main antagonist in the Gathas is Duruj. Duruj is the antagonist to Asha. Duruj and derivatives of the word Duruj is in the Gathas, such as Dregvan, people that commit Duruj. I believe Dr. Rahnemun might know better, or Dr. Jahanian and Mobed Bujwala, that I have the privilege that they're here today. I think the word has been mentioned around 18 times, the word Duruj in the Gathas. That is the main antagonist to Asha. And the Dr. Professor Rivani says that we are not sure how this imperfection crept within creation or this tangible world, and Ashur Zartush is not interested or is not interested in metaphysics so much, but we realize it is there. However, our salvation is Vohumana and Asha, that we are capable of eliminating Duruj, and the sooner we band together, the sooner the Zoroastrian community or the scientific community and the righteous community, the Ashavans, band together and unite, the sooner we'll reach end of history, where we will eliminate Duruj, and that's Freshokerti, where we reach perfection, Awar Vatat, and then immortality. So that is our battle. That is what gives life meaning to human beings. That is our purpose, to fight Duruj and reach that ultimate stage of history.
Thank you, Shahrooz Jan. There's a question about Ahu, the meaning of Ahu. Does that mean life or something else?
Okay, so I will refer to the way the translation of Dr. Jafari, and he claims that the word Ahu, the root is A-H, and I will read, if I can find that page, his etymology of Ahu. Bear with me, but basically Ahu means existence. Ahu, in this page 102, it mentions, it means existence and also being, because we know a human being has existence, a chair has existence, the universe has existence. So Ahu means existence or being. So when we say Ahura, Ra is the suffix. So Ahu Mazda or Ahura Mazda means an existence that is wise, or wisdom within an existence, or a being that is wise, or wisdom within a being. So that's what Ahu means. It means existence or being.
They're also asking then what does Ahura mean? I think Shahrooz
Okay,
is
Ra
on
is the
page
suffix.
78.
I will read the whole translation. Ahura, this is the same word as Ahu, A-H-U, given above, with suffix Ra added. This is suffix of action. So Ra is a suffix of action, which intensifies and strengthens the word. It means being, comma, existence, comma, present, or essence. When applied to God, it means the supreme being, the supreme essence. It forms a separable part of a dual name given to God, Ahura Mazda, by Zarathustra, in harmony with other translators and Western tradition. I have rendered thee variously as God, O Lord. And let me read Ahu above Ahura. By itself, Ahu derived from Ah, meaning to be or to exist, to be present. It stands for an outstanding being, a distinct entity, and therefore a person of distinction. The Gatha explains Ahu as the person who is free from enmity, who helps the living world, who activates the noble, and who can repel the fury of the wrongful in Song 1, 2, and 3, as we had discussed. Thus, Ahu is a person who holds authority. It is generally rendered as Lord in English, a term also used by me in my translation. The obvious reason for rendering this word as Lord is that in an alternate form, Ahura, it is used as a term for God. See below, which we read Ahura. However, the reader must bear in mind the true significance of Ahu and avoid any misunderstanding and false association in English with the idea of a Lord as one holds a position of arbitrary authority as a result of an inheritance, rather than as Zarathustra, indeed, one who is democratically appointed to a position of trust as a result of proven individual merit and righteousness. So we believe in meritocracy. A person who is has the ability, has the character, has the knowledge to lead. Therefore, we choose our Ahu based on their ability and not based on inheritance. In other words, well, my father was the chief of the tribe, therefore I become the chief of the tribe, even though I lack the wisdom and the knowledge or the character to be the leader of the tribe. So that's a good summation of Ahu.
So I guess in continuation of that, someone asked about the meaning of Ahura Mazda, and that she thought Ahu means the highest. So Ahura Mazda means the highest wisdom. So I think you kind of covered that, but if you'd like to expand on it, please do so.
So the highest wisdom, Ahu, we are supposed to choose our leader based on their highest knowledge. So let's give an example. So if I'm the if we have a team, let's say a soccer team or a basketball team, So our coach is the Ahu. So our coach needs to be one that has the highest knowledge in basketball to teach me and educate me as a player. How to play the game, how to become the best to succeed and win the championship. So in the human society, the Ahu needs to have the highest knowledge in leadership, in justice, in governance, in order for that individual to create a society, the Vohu Cheshatra that Ashur Zartosh talks about, which is the fourth step of the Amish Spentas, from Vohu Mana to Asha. He needs to be the most righteous, the most knowledgeable, to bring Ahunavaiti to peace, to settlement, and create the desired government or Vohu Cheshatra. That's why he's criticizing in Song 5 that these leaders lack the knowledge and the wisdom to bring Abadi, development. In the Persian philosophy, and we in particular see that during the Sasanian period, the reason why the Iranians were so tolerant of religions and other beliefs, they were not concerned about your religious beliefs because they understood the separation of ethics and knowledge. Like I discussed earlier, they were interested in development. As long as you were an individual that were righteous, that you got up and you committed yourself to the community to develop the society and advance society, Spenta, to progress, like Hegel said, the idea of development originated from Iranians. The Sasanians were only interested in development of the society in every science or discipline to advance society, Vohu Cheshatra, so we could live in Ushta and serenity and peace, to live in Ahunavaiti, to live in Dad or Data, which means justice. And that's what the Sasanians were interested. They were not interested if you worship the tree, if you worship the pencil, what your deity or what your God was. As long as within that human society, you committed yourself to Asha, to development and Hamazuri, to band together and move society forward and be just and to be ethical and not to cause harm to anyone, that is the criteria that we choose a Ahu. And unfortunately, democracy today does not necessarily give you these candidates. It's a selection not based on necessarily merit, knowledge, or character. Sometimes whoever has the most money and the funds in the campaign, whoever is the most popular, those are the winners. And the criteria is not Mazda and is not Asha. And for us Zartushtis, the criteria of a leader is wisdom and righteousness. We need to know the person that is nominated to be elected for leadership must have proven himself through a history that this person is trustworthy, is knowledgeable, and he showed us that he can lead our team to a championship, like the example of a sports team.
There's another question. I guess it's not a question. Okay. So there's a comment that after King Vishtaspa accepted Zarathushtra's religion, he got more followers. So I guess that follows what you're saying, because if a king accepts you, then I guess you can be a good leader, right?
Well, it's good for our leaders to accept that our deity should be wisdom and knowledge. And by King Vishtaspa accepting wisdom as his deity, God or knowledge, and the message of Zarathustra, he left this world that Zarathustra described in Song 5. He left worshiping false gods. He left the world of luxury. And Dr. Jafari taught me, mentioned that when he first came into contact with King Vishtas was dragged into Zartush. Do you know how many battles and wars I have won? And Zarathustra replied, okay, that's great, but how many cities or settlements have you developed? چند جا رو آباد کردی. It's easy to destroy places and settlements, but it's so hard to develop a just society. And that's where King Vishtasva, his Bohu manna, was provoked and accepted the message of Ashur-Zartush. And where in this song, Ashur-Zartush as a allegory mentions King Jamshid, right? King Jamshid lost his benevolent way and he became egocentric and he fell from the throne. He lost that far. اون فر لیدرشیپ رو از دست داد. ولی اینجا کینگ ویشتاس فر لیدرشیپ رو به دست گرفت. اون کسی که اشار رو برای راستی چون راسته انتخاب میکنه، اون فر پادشاهی رو داره، اون فر لیدرشیپ رو داره. So a leader, King Vishtaspa, accepted Ashamvahu that I will do the right thing because it is right. And that's the only reason. And that showed his wisdom and his meritocracy and character to where now you can become a leader.
Thank you, Shahrooz Jan. Are there any more questions? Please put it in the chat box. Manija Banu has a question. Manija Banu, please unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
با درود شهروز جان.
با درود بر شما مادر جان گرامی. I miss you, I love you, and it's been a while. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Azizam. It was beautiful, beautiful speech as usual. Here and there we hear Ahura Mazda, خدای یگانه هستی بخش دانا. According to Dr. Jafari's answer, so many times I answered, it could be. How about you? How about your idea? Meaning of Ahura Mazda, خدای, exactly words to words. خدای یگانه هستی بخش دانا. When we say هستی بخش, that would be the meaning of Ahura. Ahura means being or life, right? Could we say that?
The best translation in Persian is Ferdowsi, خداوند جان و خرد. So when we read this translation of Ahura, which meant a being, that being is the John. So when we say human being, in Persian it means John. کسی که جان داره یک انسانه و اون انسانی که خرد داره اون لیاقت پرستش داره. واسه همین ما اشر-زرتشت رو میپرستیم. So John in Persian means being or life. خرد means wisdom. So Ferdowsi's translation of John and Kherad means a life that has wisdom is worthy of worship and praise and celebration. So this is why we worship and celebrate and praise Ashur-Zartosht, because Ashur-Zartosht was a life, a being that had Kherad or wisdom. And any human being that has wisdom and life improves the human condition and takes away human suffering. Therefore, that person is a Soshiant, Ashavan, and a savior. So Ahura Mazda has kind of a double meaning. Ahura Mazda, according to Dr. Jafari Khosrow Irani, was the creator of universe and us human beings and animal life. And it is only one, so it's mono. There wasn't number of creators that created Asha and the tangible world. Like I mentioned, Professor Irani said Ahura Mazda created Asha and then the tangible world. And it's one entity. It's not multiple. It's not unitary. There are arguments against that with David Hume, but let's not get into that now. We can do that some other time. So you're right. It is one. It is not unitary. And it had such high wisdom, right? And it was wise. It was a wise being. So it was a being. A being means it has something that has existence. A being means it has physical existence. And it was good. Ahura Mazda is all good. because he created Asha. And Ahura Mazda does not violate its own rules of Asha and its own Vohu Mana or Manishanik. But we can become like Ahura Mazda. This is the beauty of the Zoroastrian belief, which it doesn't exist in other religions. We cannot become like God, but we are supposed to become like Ahura Mazda through Amisha Spentas. So through our Vohu Mana, Manishanik, we are supposed to not choose Duruj, so we can conquer Duruj. We are supposed to go to the path of Asha, and then everything else dominoes, Manager John. If we choose Asha, you get Ahunavaiti, which is Aramis, serenity and peace. Then you get Vohu Khashatra, the just society, Dad, Edalat, Abadi, Shahri ke Dad o Edalat dare, the just city that Plato talks about in his Republic. The just city exists with Asha. Plato totally understood Zartosh, and we can learn a lot from him. And through the just city, Vohu Khashatra, we will reach Hawar Batat, perfection, Freshokerti. You cannot reach Freshokerti and renovate the world and reach the end of history without Vohu Khashatra and the just society. And from that, you will reach immortality. If you have these 6 attributes, the 7th is Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda has these 6 attributes. So we can become like Ahura Mazda. We can become godlike. We can become friends of Ahura Mazda agar in 6 صفت یا these 6 attributes رو داشته باشیم. So this is a bigger understanding of Ahura Mazda, our wise creator, and how we can become wise creators too, to reach Freshokerti.
Thanks, Aziza.
Thank you, Shahrooz John. Are there any other questions?
I have a speak to Shahrooz. من همیشه از بابا سوال میکردم که بابا اهورامزدا یعنی چی؟ بابا حرفی که میزدن همیشه میگفتن اهورامزدا ابردانش، یعنی ابردانش، یعنی دانشی که هر چقدر بری هست. اینو بابا به من همیشه گفتن. من فهمیدم که بابا همیشه میگفتن معنی اهورامزدا یعنی ابردانش.
That is true. Abardanish, yeah, unam, I mean, that definition, and I'll explain in English what this lady mentioned. Abar means uber, it means great, it means super, it means supreme.
I know.
And Danish means knowledge, means supreme knowledge. And that is absolutely, it's part of the definition. اون یه قسمت اجباری مفهوم میشه وقتی که ما میگیم اهورامزدا یه موجودی که خرد داره، یعنی ابردانش. Mainly the supreme wisdom is in ethics. You understand we do not cause harm. You understand the principle of Asha and to avoid Duruj. That Ashavan, that Soshian, is the Abardanish because he grasps that I need to be ethical. He understands Asham Vahu and he follows the path of Asha. So any of us can be Abardanish. Any of us can be super knowledgeable, maybe not in academic science, not in engineering, not in medicine, but hey, we can know. Once you accept the message of Zartosh and you say Asham Vahu, I will follow, you've become an Abardanish, at least in ethics and morality. You have that supreme knowledge that I will follow Asha and righteousness, and I will not cause any harm to any human being or to the living condition. And then, of course, for this Abardanish, to create this massive universe, he must have had some super knowledge beyond us humans in terms of math, science, chemistry, academic science that we learn in universities. So درست میگین پوراندخت جان گرامی، اون مفهومم جور در میاد و میتونیم اضافه بکنیم به اهورامزدا.
یعنی دانشی که اصلا مرز نداره، دانشی که اصلا مرز نداره، یعنی هر چقدر بری جلو بازم هست.
درسته.
این بابا یادشون بخیر،
روان شاد،
یادشون
روان همه درگذشتان اشربان شاد باشه.
بهترینا رو برای همگی آرزو داریم.
سپاس پوراندخت
Best wishes for everybody.
Are there any other questions?
Nothing.